And I really look forward to getting into conversation with Waad, who I met a few minutes ago, but feel like I know a lot of because I've just searched your whole life for the past couple of weeks. Yeah, not being creepy, I promise. So I'm going to get serious now. But, I also want this to be a safe space where we can have such empowering conversations about issues that are affecting every corner of the world. So having to suddenly run for your life with belongings that are close to nothing towards survival is a pretty mortifying thought. Waad Al-Kateab has bravely documented and shown us her raw journey to freedom, shedding light on the lives of women living in war. Her dedication to capture raw emotions and powerful narratives on films has won her global admiration in the world of cinema and beyond. Born in Syria and a visionary filmmaker known for groundbreaking documentary Fasama, providing an intimate yet harrowing look at life living in the Syrian war. Be ready to be taken on a journey of emotions, insight, and remarkable storytelling as we get into conversation highlighting her unique perspective and dedication to capturing the human experience, even in the worst conditions you can imagine. So please join me in welcoming the inspiring Waad Al-Kateab. Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm just trying to sit down. I'm too short for this chair. Sorry.
Oh, gosh, I know. There's so much going on.
Yes.
I already love our stage presence already. It's like we were playing musical chairs for a second, but all is well. I mean, I think in the several things that I've seen of your work, it's just that reminder that even though being a woman can be testing, can be tiring, if we look at it on a societal lens through travel, one of my biggest loves, looking at the fact that just for being a woman and entering a certain society, you're immediately deemed as inferior without even speaking or doing anything, just for the sake of your existence. And when I see you, you're proof that women can do anything. I am very close to wanting to make you my Woman Crush Wednesday on Instagram. Because I think because of the many talents and skills that you hold, you taught yourself to film. And I'd be quite keen to know, before you picked up the camera, the iPhone, the several devices that you used to document your experiences and surviving the war, what was life like before that?
Thank you first. And I do remember myself in so many times when I was very young. Definitely very cheeky and headstrong. I don't know, maybe the appropriate word in English, but crazy girl all around. I used to love cartoon very much, watch a lot, and imagine so many things that I want to go live that crazy, horrible or challenging life. I didn't see that coming at that time. I was hoping for that. I remember also one of very kind of early moments. I still remember that I was sneaking to listen to my dad and mom after we supposed to go to sleep to see if they are talking anything about this is not my real family, or they found me somewhere and I want to go off. We had so many kids cartoon where they have challenge. They go somewhere off. They go and they wanted to do this. I didn't expect this to be reality. So when everything happened in 2011, I do remember how I was so taken by that childhood. I always imagined this. And for us in Syria, the revolution was a dream. It was not even a dream because we couldn't even imagine at any time before 2011 that this would be happening. So when people walked out the street, they start chanting for freedom, democracy, dignity. It was like we couldn't believe it. We were kind of hearing our voices for the first time. We were feeling like yeah, we're not just gonna change our own life in Syria, like the whole world, like it's something in our hand and we can change. And that feeling, like still, as a young child, or at that time I was 21, like young woman, I thought, yeah, there's a lot to be done. And it wasn't for me about media or filmmaking. Like I didn't know like what I want to do. I just wanted to be part of that change. So I started protesting, and I felt with that I can do something within documenting, and that's how it all started.
That is indeed how Fasama came about. And what's so remarkable about it is that you're inviting us into your world, your home, your partner, your daughter, all whilst surviving a war. There's a clip, there's many clips, but one of the first ones, I think it's a bit cold, you're wearing like a scarf or something, and then you just hear a bomb in the background, and it's just, the shock factor, that is reality, that is life. And I wonder, do you look back and think, I'm so glad I didn't give up, even during that?
Definitely yes. Maybe the main part because I feel like we lost Aleppo, we lost our country, not forever, but for now, like I'm no longer able to be there. I'm no longer being there even with my kids now. So I feel like in some way I managed to protect my memory and everything I witnessed in this documentary where people can go and see and feel. And the main thing I feel like what I wasn't very aware of at that time, which now when I look back, I see like, yeah, I did this because I was a woman. As women, like we're not shy of everything we go through. We want to face this feeling, whether it was like shame or guilt or like sadness or even happiness, craziness sometimes. So I feel like the main point was like this camera and the whole relationship with that, like because I was a woman, I managed to do what I did. And that's part of how I see even the story. But at that time, I had no idea, what I was doing. I was just following everything I'm living, and also, unfortunately, or fortunately today, but like at that time, I've never thought I would make it out. And all the bad scenarios always coming into your mind, like this won't be a happy story, and you can see this from everything around. But yeah, I managed to get out. We lost a lot. We lost so many people. I'm lucky I survived, but I know how so many people did not. And yeah, it's not a happy story even when I'm out. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot to be done until today. Syria may be no longer on the news, but there's a lot happening there. And I have a big responsibility to keep that going.
Yeah, and that is a big responsibility, like you said. For those that don't know, a lot of my background was reporting for the BBC, so I've been there for close to a decade. And I think when you're reporting on global news in African countries, Asian countries, the Middle East, it's the same narrative every day, the negative connotations, the bomb blast, the diseases, like, people that are just dying, and the numbers, it always shocked me. And then I would speak to colleagues that would say, that's just the news, that's just the agenda. And if we look at a year like this year, I feel like we're in quite strange times due to social media, the infamous AI, fake news. There's so much access to millions of information. Do you think that we're slowly becoming more desensitized to global suffering?
It's really hard, really, to explain, like, how's my feeling, especially, like, after we were displaced out of Syria, we've witnessed, another, like, disaster in so many places. Like, I can count now, like, 10, 15 countries so far. And watching that on the news closely, like with Ukraine, with Sudan, with Gaza, with so many other places today, like, it just feels so hard. And I felt guilt at so many times when I feel like I can't look at this anymore. And I was like, how can me, the people who lived through this, feeling that toward other people suffering? And yeah, I was really feeling bad. And I started to do something sometimes, and like, okay, we can do something. And then some other times when I felt like hopeless, And I think so many of us here maybe feel the same, but what I really feel like the minute we feel like people become numbers, whether they are Ukrainian or Sudanese or Palestinian, or like we're losing our humanity. And the fact that if Syria no longer in the news, but today is Gaza, and before that was Ukraine, and like Sudan barely make it to the news today, but the situation is horrible. And again, like so many other places, I'm not counting as like what's going on only now, but like we should keep trying to find a way of telling these stories, bringing people to like what's going on, like connecting with each other as well in different contexts, different situation. And yeah, sometimes we feel like there's no point of all of this, but it must be, like should be a point, and we should make and create this point. And at least, not to lose ourselves within what's going on.
I'm going to touch on that in a moment. I guess I was so excited to get into conversation that I forgot the house rules. Sorry, Ellie. Better late than never. There's wires and some tech equipment. If you see that, please be mindful of that. Sorry, I'm tempted to say demure. It's terrible. We do have a Q&A from our online audience as well. So yeah, really looking forward to those questions coming in. Please post about the event, tag us, Instagram, Twitter, and also a massive thank you to The Conduit for having us. We're going to resume back into the conversation.
That was an ad, so yes, it's fine.
Hashtag ad. You mentioned something quite key, the fact that, Waad, you're really engaged. I'm pretty sure if you open up any of your social feeds, they will be central to the parts of the world that you care about the most. So I would say to people that don't really have any connection to the Middle East, maybe, don't really like to watch a lot of news because it's quite triggering and horrible to see, how can we, without sounding too cliche, become part of the change that we hope to see? Is it the social media activism? Are there certain charities or places that we should get more locked into?
Yeah, I think like there's a lot to be done, and sometimes even like do something here as where you are around you without even being like, like exposed or whatever you wanna do outside there. There's a lot of us, activists and people who survived some like context or areas. There's so many people shouting out about how other people can help. There's an amazing charities and people who are doing amazing job, and they kind of are able to do a lot on the ground if you want. And you can do you can help them through what you're doing here. And I think part of what really means so much to me is the awareness and being open to other people. There's refugees from these countries who are going through terrible situation. Almost everywhere. There's people you can just contact and give them some support online or even here. And I think it's more about our future and what we can teach and open our kids and our new generation mind toward that the world is not just where we live and what's going on at the end of our street. And unfortunately, in the recent events, even in the UK, no, it is what's going on our street. And we should get people together and be open and be more sympathy to each other. And this is something, we can create and build within our community here to be able to welcome others and be open to others, and even imagine how the world would be if we were the others one day in any context.
You mentioned that, there's some stories from refugees that are currently there right now, and it would be good to just get an idea, with the recent conversation you've had with any of them, what has their living conditions been like? Like, how is life for them in Syria today?
The main feeling I think we all kind of feel, and now people inside feel more than even us today, they are abandoned, they were alone, they are not being even listened, especially today with the current situation around the world in so many places. And the fact that today, as we speak, there's so many governments and politicians who are trying to wash everything happened in Syria, and they pretend that it's okay, we should just move on now. Like Assad is the ruler of Syria. This is the reality today, and we have to accept this reality. And like I can't see any of this make sense as we are as witness of all these crimes. We're still alive. We didn't forget. We will never forget, and we do everything we can today to keep this conversation happening. So, like I think people in Syria feel like definitely frustrated. Even people who live under the regime control, they have nothing to do with their life. They have no say in their life. They live in fear all the time, and there's a lot of like just even ignoring their own life today because everything is horrible. The economy is horrible. The fear, like any time, any second, there is security forces could be knocking on your door and you could be taken and no one would know where you are. And you know, like with normalization with Assad, this is just like bringing this reality to very awful situation. So it's very hard today, but also again, I think there's areas, there's one town in Syria, it's a city called Suida. They've been protesting for over a year now, peaceful protests, and they are protected in their areas because the regime cannot go into that area. And it's been over a year of peaceful protest in an amazing way, bringing back all the chanting that we had in 2011. So there's always hope, and you see this young generation who's going out who can really do a lot. And I don't know really how this will end, but I still have really deep belief that like this is what happened in 2011. The Syrian revolution is something like we felt it, we understood, and we tasted, and we lived. What does it mean? Like not to be free because we didn't reach that point, but just to try and to do everything for that change. And I don't think that's like illusion. I do believe that was true thing, and we will live through this again. And that's hopefully when we can be back to Syria at some point.
And that reminds me of a conversation I had. So last year for my 30th birthday, I decided to go on a surprise trip, and I knew it would be in the Middle East, and it ended up being Jordan, which was amazing. Highly recommend. I met people from all over, and I spent a lot of time with Palestinians, Syrians, and the Lebanese. And there was just so much emphasis on, you know, the fact that their families are from these countries that have now been turned upside down, and they have that desire to go back, and you know, they have only like a few wires that keeps them connected to what's happening on the ground. And, you know, as situations are worsening, it's becoming even more difficult to stay in contact with people on the ground. And, you know, despite the news sources that we see and sometimes have to verify, how do you, you know, really stay locked into what's happening on the ground?
Like we follow the news through social media with so many people who live in different areas. Connecting with families and people who are under the regime control is very like dangerous for them, and that's something like I couldn't do for years, unfortunately. But we do have like other channel and resources where we follow and we try to do something through that. I think what's really like makes me sometimes feel like very weird is like this can't be the story. This can't be the end of the story, and whatever is going on day by day. I don't want to believe as a human being that someone who killed like thousands of people, arrested thousands of people, displaced like millions of people in Syria, can be, you know, still ruling and everything is fine. And Western or Eastern or any other countries who's, again, you know, back to the normalization, because for me, this is what I can't still understand. Like, no one can wipe all of this and pretend that never happened. And I think, you know, for us as Syrians, we lost so many things. We lost even the relationship between each other in terms of like, even in any single family, but also on the big community. But on the other side, we also gained so many things, and our belonging to Syria, the way how we see Syria and what is coming in Syria. Maybe it could be very different from, if you talk to 2 or 3 different Syrians, you can hear totally different like opinion. But I think what we all want, very basic, and I wanted today to be able to take my daughters to see the house where I was born, like to live there maybe, and maybe not to live, but at least we want to have our own control of our life. And this longing and this feeling of you will never be able to go back is something, believe me, like I don't wish it to anyone in life. But the point here, like, how can we live and wake up every day feeling that everything should be fine when you see that everything is not? And life in so many places and so many areas, so many contexts is not fair. And I know how many people like come to that point, but this can't be the story here. And this is what we should keep working every single day, whether in making films, whether being a teacher, whether being a doctor, or like just doing anything. This can be the story, and like, I hope to live to the day when I see the end of the story in the way how I'm imagining that.
Me too. Remind us of the year that you left Syria.
That was 2016, December.
And I wonder, like, based on social media, the people that you spoke to, would you say there's been close to any significant change or development that gave you that bit of hope?
No, and back again, like for me, the only hope I have that we felt what does it mean to be part of the change in 2011. This is like years ago, but that feeling, I will never ever like forget it. And again, you know, today it's very dark, like path or road, but that feeling, like I can live on that forever in my life. And I know also that so many Syrians have the same like feeling. But again, you know, like it's very, like, you know, when you watch a Hollywood movie and you see like the villain and the good people, and yeah, the ending should be different and it will be different. We're not in the final season yet, so yeah.
It's coming soon. Sorry, we have amazing trailers for the films that
I forgot.
Sorry. No? Okay, was that your cue? Okay, amazing.
Yeah, this is the trailer of for Sama.
بحلب مدينتي. لسه عم صور. هذا الشيء اللي عم يخلي معنى لوجودي. ما حدا منا كان عنده أي فكرة كيف رح تتغير حياتنا للأبد. حمزة، أنا حامل. سما سما سما، عملت هالفيلم مشانك. بدي إياك تفهمي شو اللي كنا عم نقاتل مشانه. أنا بحبك كثير أكثر من أصلا. في ضرب كثير اليوم. سما، أنا بعرف إنك عم تفهمي شو عم بصير. بقدر أشوف هالشي بعيونك. ما عم تبكي مثل أي طفل عادي. وهذا الشي اللي عم يحرق لي قلبي. سما، رح تسامحيني؟
What a time, just to have something out there, you know, in the world. And I do hope this isn't something that becomes timeless. I hope it's not something someone watches in 10 years and say, oh yeah, it's still the same. You know, so I'm definitely with you in the hopes that there is an end to that. But I'd be interested to know, were you, I don't know, was there any part of you that was a bit nervous to put this out there in the world, whether that's reactions from the Syrian government or people that maybe saw this as too personal to share?
Yeah, like all the film, for sure. Everything. And I think more than the Syrian government, which was definitely like a challenge for me, but it was more like the very personal moments and how, because when I was filming this, I've never pictured this as a film. I wasn't a filmmaker. I didn't know how to do films. I was just following and trying to document all this feeling as it was happening with me, as just Waad being there. So when the idea of the film came, for me was like, the first thing was like, I wasn't even like expecting to survive. So now like, I'm surviving, I'm out now, then I have to do the film. And I had so many like conflict in my mind about like, the first like moment when we left Aleppo, it was so big loss. We still have it until now, but at that time I was like, there's no point of everything. Like we did everything we've done, people knew about a lot of things and nothing changed. So why this film would change anything? So I was like, no, I'm not gonna do anything, that's it. 5 minutes later, I was like, I have all this footage. I have war crimes evidence, and I have to put this out. I have to tell my part of the story. And that's how this all happened. And yeah, I was very nervous of make it very personal, because at that time I was also like, this is not about me. I was one person living there. There was like 300,000 people in the siege of Aleppo. And I was thinking like, my story is not important. I was doing other people's stories. So I wasn't looking at myself within this. And all this, like so many of the material in For Sama was in a private folder called private. And I've never thought, you know, this would make it into something. It was just more like my diary and things I was thinking of. Yeah, so more personal. And I was thinking, how does other women or Syrian people would look at this, especially the people who were with us in Aleppo? I was very nervous about how would they see this. And yeah, like it was a big challenge, but I was very, very, very lucky in the way how Syrians received this film. And that was for me like what really matters. And then when the film went out, people see it, it was just something really overwhelming in terms of the reaction and the amazing things that we managed to do with the film as well. Because for me, at some point, the film was a goal to achieve, and then it became just a tool. And you can go out, you can see the film, you can explain a lot about Syria through this. And that was really important, like for us.
I agree. Feedback is so important, because I can imagine you in the editing suite or, you know, with your co-director going through bits, things that go out, things that go back in. It will be great to know what was one bit of feedback, whether it was from a Syrian or a follower of yours on social media, that really stuck with you.
I mean, the most comment I'm very proud of I had, which it happened in 3 different like words, but it has the same meaning. Like someone I really know and someone I don't know, just like another Syrian refugee in different place. And then another message I got from someone under the regime control. And the 3 people were telling me that like when they have kids, and one of them had kids, so he was like, this is the only thing I want to show my kids about Syria. Or the first thing I want to show my kids about Syria. And that was for me really like I made it for Sama, but it's for the next generation, for people not to forget. And for me, just that other Syrians are able to see the same thing, like they want their kids to see Syria through this film, it means the world for me. So that was like the top thing I've ever, like, I'm so proud of, yeah.
That's incredible. And I think it's that whole thing about leaving a legacy, knowing that years from now, that can be seen as something that is very close to the people that have that connection with it. I know we've spoken about Fosama for a little while, and please do watch it. It's absolutely incredible. But that's not the only incredible work of art that Waad creates. So we are in Olympic season, and so many of us have been enjoying it this summer. It's a nice distraction from, the doom and gloom that we see in our usual day-to-day. And I can't remember the last time I was glued to my TV screen. I'm so selective with what I watch on TV. Like, you have to convince me to even watch a series, unless it's that good. But what I really loved about the Olympics was just the idea of feeling seen, feeling represented and seeing yourself on that screen. And We Dare to Dream, which is, I believe, the trailer that you have for us to watch, was that also something that was important for you to keep in mind when you were creating We Dare to Dream, as well as raising awareness about the refugee crisis?
So I didn't know why I was doing We Dare to Dream at the beginning. It was after we finished for summer and was out 2 years of touring around with the film. I was feeling I was doing something very important for Syria, and everything was in my mind, like my next film or anything I want to do, it should be about Syria. And I'm not going to do anything else out of that. But then when We Dare to Dream came to me, they showed me a little bit of the stories of these athletes. It was like some random things, like articles or like Instagram posts they posted or something. And I read an Instagram post of an Iranian athlete. She's a refugee herself, and her post was talking about how she left Iran and what does that mean to her. And now I'm just talking and I feel goosebumps about this. It was just so emotional to me to read that, and I felt like we have something in common. We have shared experience, even when our stories are very different from each other. And that's when I decided, I'm gonna do this film. I know nothing about sport. I've never watched the Olympics before. I don't understand anything about that word. But for me, what really grabs me into that, the refugee experience. And again, feeling as well that, I've seen so many films about refugees or even Syria. And I always feel like, why we look like this, why we talk like this, why the story is like this. I always felt really misrepresented in so many shows and TV and fiction stuff. And I wanted to do something different with my very little experience. I had only one summer at that time. And I was not sure even if I'm capable to do a film. But I was like, I'm gonna do this and I'll do my best, at least, to have something out on the screen that really feel me proud as a refugee myself. And that's how I walked into that film. And it went 2 years of amazing journey at the Olympics with these amazing athletes who, it was their first experience and everything. And they carried so much longing and belonging to their countries who they left, and so many fears, so many amazing experience. And they had to put everything on that arena or on that stage where they had to do something really challenging for them because they're not ready as other athletes. It was an amazing experience, and I've learned so much from that one. I feel and I felt with that experience, now my filmmaking even, I wanted to do something only about Syria, but no, actually there's so many things very important, and I can do it. I can get new audience to know about Syria as well through these different films. And for me, this film was not just about the refugee Olympic team who was at that time at Tokyo. It was about the legacy that the team could leave, about other refugees all over the world who they don't even have that experience of being sport, or they don't have even a ticket in their hand to see hope in their future. So yeah, I really hope you can see it. And the trailer is about actually not this film, it's about the next one. So yeah, we'll talk about it in a second.
Oh, gosh. You know what? I'm thinking about the women and men in this room who would dream to be in your super talented shoes. From the award nominations, co-directing with Angelina Jolie, no big deal. It would be great to know of 2 key tips that you would give to people that want to grow more creatively, and maybe some filmmakers as well who really want to grow in their art.
Like, I can talk a lot, but without really, like, I don't know what is right and what's wrong. Like, I can tell you what I've been through, what I managed to kind of push through, but as well, like, in this world, like, there's a lot of other experience which tells you the same thing, and it takes you into different, like, areas. The industry is very challenging and very hard, and I've cried in the last 5 years, I don't know how many times. And I felt in so many places like surviving a film and making that film was harder than like getting out of Aleppo.
Oh my God.
So it was like not very like, you know, and we're really like, I was so tired with every film I was there. But I think what is really my only maybe advice or something is like really to follow your heart in what you're working on. Like, there's so many people who would give you comments and give you like their experience, and there's very big experience, producers, directors, whatever. It's all very important, but what's really important is what you really believe in and how you really should follow what you think it's right. Yeah, it's really hard industry and it's really challenging. And every time like a film was done, for me is like, I don't think I would do that again. It's like birth, you know, babies. So yeah, but then we do it again and we love them and we grow them more and yeah, we do more films, so yes.
We just love stress. I love it, but it does pay off. One of my favorite sayings, short-term pain, long-term gain. That's the hope. I feel like I may have been speaking longer than I meant to. We've got a couple questions left, but am I right? Well, sorry, what questions from me to Waad, but am I right in saying one left and then probably get onto the Q&A? I have the nod of approval. Where we are right now in 2024, endless resources, social media feeds, short attention spans, so much going on. Where do we go to source or find organizations, movements that are actively working towards hostile environments worldwide? Because I love what you said, Syria will always be in your heart, but through your work, you also want to raise awareness about it on a global perspective. Who are the people or the groups that are doing that maybe we've not heard of before?
I mean, there's so many. And I feel like the only way for you to break through this or do something is really to volunteer for one day or one event with someone and feel like the work from inside. Because there's so easy, you know, when people like just point to different like partners or people we work with or all of this, which, yeah, please check out our social media and see our partners who are all amazing and they do amazing work. But again, you know, like it's through your communities, through your like groups, find the people and just try to do something. Like even when it's a couple of hours event or something, you might really meet so many people and it could open to very different like things to be done. So yeah, there's a lot there.
That's really helpful. And again, Waad is very easy to find on social media. Please just search her up and the incredible work that she's doing. And there's a second trailer she mentioned, Death Without Mercy. Before we watch it, could you just tell us a little bit about that process of working on it?
When I made For Sama, I thought this would be the most difficult thing I would do in my life, as it's very personal for me, and there's a huge loss in the film, which is my main city, my country. And that was 2016. And then in 2023, there was a big earthquake which hit Syria and Turkey. And the area which was affected was south of Turkey, which is very close to the Syrian borders. And at that time, I had my family there in Turkey, in one of the areas who was affected. And they was very lucky that they survived and they were totally fine. But again, there's over 60,000 people who were killed in that earthquake, some of whom like entire families while they were asleep. And again, at that time, you know, I was here. I couldn't go there as a refugee here. I needed a visa. We were not allowed to travel. And you as well back to the same point where you are hopeless. You can't do anything. And then we started really to like just find any way, like in any possible way to help people there. And then 2 months later, I was approached to do this story. And at that time, like I didn't know to do any research because I was living that day by day with the people who were there, my friends, my family, other people I knew. And then I managed to make this film, Death Without Mercy, about 2 Syrian families. Both of the families are very close friends to me. We were together since we were in Aleppo, and we've been together in so many different stories, like Upside Down. One of them lost 13 of his family, Fadi. He was also a filmmaker, and he was a cinematography. He's done work with amazing Oscar-winning and Oscar-nominated films before The White Helmet and Last Men of Aleppo. And suddenly in the story, he became like the main story with his family. And Fadi is one of the most noble people I've ever met in my life. And you know, to watch his story like closely, minute by minute, with what's going on. Again, I thought, you know, that story for Sama is personal, but this one is much more harder to watch someone you love going through this pain, like with no way of finding any hope in whatever happened. The other story is Fuad and Safa, who's 2 amazing human beings who are married. They have one boy, Qutayba, and they have a newborn baby. Safa with the baby were buried under the rubble for 9 hours until they managed to get out. And they got out by her as a mother who managed to like dig up to be able to get out with her baby. There was no rescue forces at that time. There was no help arrived. And she managed to get out with her baby. But unfortunately, she lost her boy, Qutayba, who was 8 years old. And yeah, this is the story, and this is part of the story which we did in this film. The film is going to be out soon in the UK and in the US as well. And I understand it's very, very difficult story. But I don't know how many of you here have heard about the earthquake. That was 1.5 years ago. And if you heard of this, I don't know for how many days you've heard of this, because it's one big story and it never made it to the news for more than maybe 1 or 2 days. And again, like this is about the earthquake, but it's about grief. It's about beloved ones. It's about people who lost like all their world, and how much of us can relate to this, because of course, even if we live here, even if we live wherever we were, we understand what does it mean to love someone, to lose someone. So I know it's a very hard story, but I urge you all to like go to see the film when it's out and to grieve with us in this story. So thank you for listening. Sorry.
خلي وين ساكنين؟
بالخراب ليه كمان كلها وقعت فوقنا.
Çığlık seslerini duyabiliyorsunuz. Hala deprem oluyor. Buradan çıkacağımı zannetmiyorum.
In southern Turkey, buildings crumble like sand.
They simply don't know how many people may still be trapped. merak etme geliyoruz.
أنا دعيت الله بس يطلع لي واحد بس واحد.
أقعد أقول له ماما لسه عمرك 40 يوم أنت حرام تكون بالحجر.
Bütün idare sorunu. Ne binanın malzemesi denetleniyor ne de projesi var. Devletin önlem almamış olması çok kötü bir şey.
50,000 lay dead beneath the debris.
Bebek! Çabuk! Mucize işte.
Adaleti sağlamak çok zor.
إذا بدهم يعطونا عدالة ينقذوا الناس التانية. وما بس هدول الناس اللي اندفنوا هن الضحايا، نحن كلنا ضحايا.
Thank you for that, Waad. And yeah, we will definitely, I'm sure many of us will be keeping our eyes peeled on the release of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm definitely aware I have asked a lot of questions and we might be a bit rushed for time, but now I believe is the Q&A part. We've got the lovely Francesca there who has the mic. For anyone who has questions for Waad. Okay, we've got one right here. Gonna get those steps in today, Francesca. Sorry, just to have. All good.
Thank you for sharing all of this with us tonight. I feel as though in the last few years, especially in the last year with the ongoing genocide in Gaza, it feels as though the West has awoken somewhat to its own complicity in the violence around the world. And there have obviously been there's been a huge rise in demonstrations and engagement in the cause and everything. And there's also been a lot of like inter-community discussions and infighting about, you know, what's performative, what's actually helpful, the despair of like seeing all the efforts and then like our politicians continue to do what they're doing and they continue to lie and they continue to wage war. And is there anything from your perspective that the Westerners could be doing better as like it's our tax dollars funding this, we're in the heart of it and we benefit from it?
I mean, to be honest, when the war happened in Ukraine, first the invasion, I was very shocked and I was very traumatized again with everything happened. But even with everything, with the cost of that was like unbelievable. But even with that, we didn't feel we lost our values. We didn't feel like it's still like it's a question of matter where you stand or who you support, what's going on. When this happened in Gaza, it was very confusing for me. It was like bombing a hospital in Syria is like a war crime. Bombing a hospital in Ukraine is a war crime. And then bombing a hospital in Gaza, we don't know. Wait a second, let's think about it. So it was very, I think, like as values was so like I don't know what is the right word like. So, and I don't see a way out of this more than just shouting. Like, I don't know what we can do else, but we should just keep shouting, keep talking about it. Don't pretend it's okay, or even if it's a conversation. And I know how hard is it, and I know also like the conversation also with what's going on there is like the blood is so much and the pain is so much. There's no way, like, I don't know what we can do. For me as one individual, like I think we should just keep shouting. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you for that great question. Anybody else? Any other questions? Oh, we've got a couple here. Okay, we'll go back there and then second row here.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for sharing. I have a question. So, for context, I have a brother, and he's also from Aleppo, and he joined our family in 2015. And obviously, throughout the last years, I was able to, see him become a man, grow up, start going to university, driving license. Like, so much has changed for him in the last almost decade. yet the stories that he sees, that I see, that all of us see, remain often the same. It's the same pictures, it's the same fear-mongering, it's coming out of the same place. So I've been thinking a lot recently about what might be missing, what are the stories that are potentially unheard. And I often go to talks like this, and there's always an incredibly impressive person like yourself. And I just wonder if you have any insight or advice into what it might be that's lacking in these stories that we see, or what is not shared enough that might move people's hearts to actually change something or to perceive the situation differently, to go out on the streets. And yeah, that's the question.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing as well about your life. I think there's a lot of untold story, and you know, as a filmmaker myself, I get so many people, like friends, family, neighbors, whatever, they like, look at this story, I wrote this story, can you do this? And most of them fiction things, which are like, I don't know how to do this, but I see, like, I think there's a lot, and especially, it's a big country with so many people, with so many stories, so many things happened, and also, even like I do remember that one of the main things I forget to even myself remember is like our normal life before everything happened. Like how did that, you know, because I think every part of this story and detail is lead to where we are today and to what's gonna happen next. So yeah, I'm like, there's so many stories. And I think part of that is like, what is the audience wants to hear, which is also sometimes challenging because it might not be all the stories, or it might not be the most important thing in the story. And sometimes, you know, like it's so many things coming with agendas, with which broadcaster is broadcasting this, and how do they see the story and all of this. And in so many places, I think our agency were taken off from us as people who lived that story. And I'm talking here, you know, as a maybe like someone who lived through this, not just as a director. And I managed to get back part of this because I was the director who lived through this. And I had, who you mentioned, like my co-director, Edward, who was brilliant in like fighting with me toward, you know, what I want to say, not what he wants to tell as a co-director, which was really challenging for us as well.
Thank you. I think, yeah, we had a question on the second row here.
Thank you for your courage. That's really one thing I wanted to say. I was wondering what your experience of being a woman and a mother, bringing this message to the world through your films, really hit people differently from being a man, for instance, or having this perspective as a woman.
Yeah, I think that was something I've never thought when I was inside Syria. Like, you know, you live day by day, second by second, you're just focusing on this moment. You're trying to be a good mom at that very horrible situation. But at the same time, you know, like nothing is right, nothing is good. I think what I felt when For Summer was out is like when it was shown into so many places, like when other women reacted to this in the way how, yes, we do understand each other, even if we live in totally different worlds, even if our experience is totally different, there's something we can connect as women or as mothers. And that was something really helped me a lot because, you know, I feel like the support, I feel like how this is a more collective feeling because whether you live in the US, in the UK, or in Aleppo, when you have your first child, you don't know how to put the like situation. It's really challenging. So everything else above of that, it's adding to that situation. But that feeling of being responsible for someone you really love, someone you can't even like protect, or you don't know how would you protect. So I think that was something very important within the experience. And it allows the film to go beyond just Syria. And that's what I didn't really like get at the beginning. But then when the film was out, so many people, when they've seen the film before they became parents or because they've become family, it was very different for them from after. And I've got some people who were telling me this, which was very, for me, like, oh yeah, really. But it's us because we connect as a human being, because we see how much we are similar to each other, even when everything is different. So I think that was really like important point I wasn't thinking of before.
I think we've got time for one final question, if anybody has one. Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing. I was wondering, since you have seen so many terrible things and a lot of your work obviously does center around so much tragedy and pain, apart from channeling that into your work, do you have other coping mechanisms? Because I'm sure lots of us here find it really hard, not even being part of it, but witnessing and seeing all the horror. How do you learn to live with that and deal with it and carry on? Thank you.
I think the film helped me at some point. I wasn't sure how did that like all happen, but I think my belief as well that this is a good cause. And the point here, like, it's not like I'm okay with what I'm going and what I'm doing. I'm not living my life normally. There's a lot of challenging within the day and night specifically. But I think the point here, like, there's guilt with what happened. There's guilt that I survived and other people did not. But also there's a big feeling of this can't be the story, and it should be different, and I should do my part even when I know that maybe I did not lead to anything different. So my feeling, I think, toward, like, something should be different. I should wake up because I want to do something. I think my kids also helped me a lot because I do have a physical human being who they have to live in a better life than we lived. My husband helped me a lot, who was always supportive in every corner in my life. And I feel the love from my family, from the people who we lived with us in that situation. Some of them are still here in London, and we do have this amazing group of people who we just sit down. We don't need to say anything. We don't need to explain anything. And that's, I think, helped me a lot to survive. So sometimes, it's really difficult to deal with what happened, but there's a lot of things to be done more, and there's a lot of gratitude for the people who were with us along the way, and they still until today.
Gosh, I wish we had longer, but we don't. But Waad Al-Kateab, thank you so much, honestly. Amazing.